This QDS video will review all the options and features available in Preview Tool and then demo in the CAPI and ACASI preview emulators with a sample questionnaire. With Preview Tool, you can highlight and run sections of your Design Studio file in a CAPI or ACASI emulator without needing to have those modules installed. In order to test responses for questions prior to the highlighted section, you can set values for these on Data Element Test tabs. Preview Tool includes multiple options, including setting an interview date, choosing to ignore preceding skips or edits, viewing variable names during preview, and generating a log of saved test values. While in preview mode, you can use the CAPI menu or ACASI keyboard shortcuts to access options. You can review all response data at any time in a response values box and easily find what you're looking for with the variable name or question number search options. You can also activate the logging feature and even add comments. All of this facilitates testing skip instructions, edit elements, and the calculation of automatic variables. We'll take a look at how this works with a sample questionnaire. In preview mode, it is easy to take a look at how a single question will look on the CAPI or ACASI screen. For example, we have an item with a rating scale response and want to take a quick look at how the scale looks on the screen. To do that, we can select that one element, which in our example is called Current State of Health, and then go to the main menu under Tools, Run Preview, or we can also select the keyboard shortcut F5. The default option for preview is CAPI mode, so here it opens in a CAPI emulator which looks like CAPI except for an additional preview menu at the upper left, which includes options to open the response values box or update the log if that option was enabled. We'll take a look at both of those in a bit. Here we can see how this item looks as a horizontal scale. If we wanted to see how it looks with a different option, such as with the vertical scale, we could then exit preview mode, make that change, and then look at it in preview again. You'll exit preview the same way as you would for interrupting a regular CAPI interview by going to the menu, and you can go to Interview and then Exit. Just like CAPI, it will ask us if we're sure if we'd like to terminate this interview. And if we say yes, because we are exiting preview, it also asks us if we would like to review response values before terminating. For right now, we are going to say no. And QDS will then take us back to the Design Studio. We can open up this item and go to the Response Set tab and make a change. We're going to change it to a vertical scale to see how that looks and select OK. And then once again, we'll go to Tools, Run Preview to start it again. Now we can see that same item but with the vertical scale as we changed that under our response options, and we can see which we might prefer for our survey, and then when we're done we can exit preview again. Preview mode is also very useful for reviewing the results of skips, edits, or automatic variables by selecting specific elements to test without needing to go through the entire survey. For example, we have a section towards the end of our survey asking about tobacco use that includes a skip and an edit. To test just this section, we can first highlight it. We are making sure to include the marker as that is the skip destination, and after it's highlighted, once again we can go to Tools and Run Preview. Preview opens to the first item highlighted. And when we get to our first question, we're going to go ahead and say yes so that the skip is not triggered, and we will continue. Then we're going to purposely enter values that will trigger our edit check regarding the number of cigarettes smoked yesterday and in the past 7 days. To view the responses that triggered that edit, we can go to Preview, Response Values from the menu, and note we can always also use the keyboard shortcut of Control-R. Once we do that, it'll open the Response Values box, which shows variable names, question numbers, labels, as well as code and display values for responses, as well as minimum and maximum values. They're most applicable if you have a special code response, such as refuse to answer. They'll show the allowable range. You'll notice as well that you can see data for all the earlier questions in the survey prior to the highlighted section. For these, we're seeing the test values that were assigned on the test tab for those data elements. We're going to take a look at how to set those next. Also in the response values box, if you need to quickly and easily find a specific question, you can enter that in the Find What box. For example, if we enter age and select Find Next, we'll go to our age question. And if we select that again, we'll go to the next item that also included age in the variable name. Alternately, you can also find by question number. This is very convenient for long surveys. When you're done reviewing, you can select OK to exit response values. Now if we go back to that very first question and say no, we're going to skip forward to the end of the highlighted section, so QDS will ask us if we wish to review response values. We're going to go ahead and say yes again. And now we can see the responses that we just entered, including the value of no for ever smoked a cigarette. And then the next cigarette questions have logged responses of skipped. To exit response values, we'll go ahead and select OK. We have now exited back to the Design Studio since that was the end of our preview session. Sometimes you may have a skip or edit condition or an automatic variable that refers back to questions much earlier in your survey. To test this situation, you'll want to change the test values for those variables. You can do that in two different ways. First, under Options, Data Defaults, and then the Test tab, you can set the default for each response type. For example, you could set all of the yes and no type questions to any response available from the drop-down. For types such as pick one or number, you can select the minimum, midpoint, or maximum in addition to special codes. For right now, we're going to leave these at their default settings. If you need to test a specific value for a question, you can set that on the Data Element Test tab. For example, we have a skip late in our survey that will skip over the pregnancy section to the Information Element Thank You screen if gender was not equal to 2 or female, or age was greater than 50. However, both our age and gender items are all the way at the beginning of our survey. To test just this skip, we can first set the test values for these two variables and then run preview for just the element surrounding the skip at the end. To set the test values, we're going to first go to the gender variable and open that up and go to the Test tab, which is located here. And then in the drop down, you can select one of the allowable values, and we're going to change this to female and select OK. Then, in order to set our age value, we're going to need to open up date of birth and go to the Test tab for that. That's because age is calculated from date of birth. You'll notice here that if you change the response to specify, this will open up the specified values box where you can enter your value. We're going to go ahead and enter in values and then select OK. Now to test our skip, we're going to go down and highlight the questions around it, and once again we'll go to Tools and then Run Preview. We can see that the skip was triggered since we are on the thank you screen. We will exit once again by going to Interview and then Exit. First, we'll want to terminate. We'll say yes, and then if we say yes to reviewing response values, that will once again open up the response values box. And if we go to look at our values, we see that gender does have the assigned value of female as we set that, and the value that we assigned to date of birth on the test tab, and the calculated age according to that. Then, if we want to test different values for our condition, we can go back and update the test tab. We're going to do that for date of birth, and there we're going to change the specified value for year to 1990 and select OK. Then we'll go again and select the section that we would like to test and go to Run Preview. Now, since the test values were set so that the skip was not triggered, the pregnancy questions are asked. We can go to Preview Response Values and look at the values once again, and we can see that once again gender of course is still female because we did not change that value, but the date of birth is now updated, as well as the calculated age based on date of birth. This is a great way to test complicated skips or edits that reference one or more variables. Next, we'll look at the different options that can be used in preview mode. In the Design Studio, go to Options, Preview, and you'll first see the General tab. As mentioned, the default is CAPI, and so we're going to go ahead and change that to ACASI for our next examples. The next option to consider is to ignore preceding skips or edits. This can be very useful if you want to test something late in the survey, but earlier skips or edits might cause the section you are testing to be skipped over. Results using this option should be interpreted with care, as it can result in impossible scenarios. For our examples, we'll leave it unchecked. Next, we are going to select the Specify Preview Interview Date box, which will then open up the calendar interface. This option allows you to set the date that should be considered the current date for the preview session, such as the today's date automatic variable. This is very convenient for tests relating to dates so that you can change the date here rather than on your actual device. Finally, we're also going to check the Append Variable Name option so that we can view variable names on the screen during the preview session. Next, we'll go to the Log tab. And this is where you can turn on the option to save responses entered in preview mode at any time into a comma-delimited file that can then be brought into a spreadsheet program. First, we'll check the Produce Preview Session log, and once you do that, all of the option fields become enabled. Next, you must enter a directory for the log file, or you can use the Browse button to select your folder. Note that the default name for the log file is the survey name plus language plus preview plus test. You may change this by entering a new name in the box, which will be updated the next time you open Preview Options. Finally, you need to select one or more variables in the Tracked Variables box that will be saved to the log file. Note that the box contains all variables since the last validate. And QDS will prompt you regarding renaming an existing log file if you modify the checked list of tracked variables without changing the log file name. For this example, we're going to select subject identifier and today's date, as well as the variables that go into two calculated variables that we want to test out the programming for. After we finish selecting all of these options, we'll go ahead and click OK. Since we are changing our tracked values from an earlier log, it's asking us if we want to close out the existing file log and start a new log with the old name, and we are going to go ahead and say yes to do that. Then we will select the items that we would like to test and go to Tools, Run Preview. This time it opens in ACASI preview mode, so there is no menu bar. However, you can see the variable names now in curly brackets at the end of the question text since we selected that option. We're going to respond to the first two questions that are used to calculate our automatic variables. Then, since we're in ACASI mode, we're going to use the keyboard shortcut Control-R to open the response values box. We can see the values that we just entered, as well as the calculations. Since we enabled the log option, the buttons to update log or update log with notes are now enabled. We're going to add the currently entered values to the log along with notes. And we'll say add to log, and QDS will let us know that response values and notes have been added to the log file. And we'll select OK. And now we're going to use previous question to go back and then forward again. And we're now going to use the keyboard shortcut Control-L to add to the log, and QDS will let us know that that's been done. Note that you could also use Control-T to update with notes, and that if you were in CAPI mode, both of those log options are available on the preview menu as well. So we're going to go back one more time to enter responses, and once again add to the log. And we can continue to do this and add to our log until we have tested all the conditions that we would like to test. If we're completely done, we can exit ACASI by using the keyboard shortcut of Alt F4, just like we would use in a regular ACASI interview, and then say yes that we would like to terminate. That takes us back to the Design Studio. To understand how the log data are saved, we will take a look at the log after it has been opened and converted to a spreadsheet file. The log file is organized with each tracked variable's data in columns in survey order, with notes as the last column if any were entered. There is one row for each instance that a log update was made. You can see here that we have 4 rows of responses since we added to our log 4 times. We can also see the one note entered on the first row. You'll notice that the values all represent the data as they were saved at the time the log was updated. For variables earlier in the survey, the values come from the test tab values, such as for subject ID, which is all 1000, or today's date automatic variable, which is the preview date that we set under options. Note that you can continue to add data to the same log with subsequent preview sessions until you delete or rename the existing log file. That's all for this video, but to learn more about preview mode as well as automatic variables, skip or edit elements, see QDS Online Help or other Design Studio videos.